Hello guys and welcome back. Welcome back to Dylan's Little Hobbies. In today's video we are not only going to be reviewing Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7 Episode 4, but we are actually going to be reviewing the entire Bad Batch arc. Simply put, there are a couple of things that I didn't really mention in my other reviews that I simply wanted to mention in this review and talk about my thoughts going into this last season. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. First off, if you guys don't know this already, I'm Dylan and this is my little hobbies. And you know what? When it comes to my childhood, one of the biggest things is Star Wars The Clone Wars. You know, I got into Star Wars around Episode 2, and then I went to go see Episode 3 in the theaters with my dad. That was the first movie I went to go to the theaters for, you know? So I got in it just as Star Wars ended, and the only thing left for me was the Clone Wars. I mean, the expanded universe, it was too complicated for me. It wasn't considered canon to me. Anything that wasn't George Lucas at the time, I wasn't interested in. So the only thing that really stood out to me was the Clone Wars. And something that I really liked about the Clone Wars is that it really not only expanded the story and the lore of Star Wars, but more importantly, it grew up with you, you know? Sure, it began a little bit goofy and silly, but the more you got into it and the more you grew up, the more you get to learn from these characters. Not just learn about Star Wars, but learn about life in general and learn about how war actually affects people. And that's just something I absolutely loved about Star Wars The Clone Wars. Now, when Disney took over, Disney actually canceled Star Wars The Clone Wars. And you know what? They had 2 more seasons planned for Netflix. It was on Netflix at the time. And I absolutely could not stand the fact that my childhood Star Wars was not going to be completed. I hated it when it was canceled on Cartoon Network, and I was so happy about it being on Netflix that I went out that day and got Netflix subscription. I never even heard of Netflix before Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 6 went on to Netflix. And that's what made me go get Netflix in the first place, was Star Wars The Clone Wars. And when Disney canceled all of that, I raged about it. In fact, it's one of the many reasons. There are many other reasons, but one of the biggest reasons why I hated Disney Star Wars in the beginning is just because they canceled my childhood. I was really, really into Star Wars and Clone Wars, and while, yes, I was reaching that age where I probably should have been getting out of it, it was just a so enveloped story that there's no way I could just, leave it at that. And yet, that's what they had to do. They started doing Star Wars Rebels instead. And you know what? The story of Star Wars Rebels is great because of Dave Filoni. But Disney really dipped their toes into his work there. And because of it, it didn't turn out so good because they had to make it more children-friendly, because Star Wars The Clone Wars wasn't child-friendly for some reason. Look, Star Wars The Clone Wars is made for kids, alright? But something that I love about it is it doesn't treat its audience like they're idiots. It actually does show you war, and it does censor itself very well, but it still gets the point across. It still gets the jokes out there. The jokes don't take you out of the scenes. Even Jar Jar Binks is good in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and I hate Jar Jar Binks. So I just love Star Wars The Clone Wars. When I heard they were bringing it back for one last hoorah season for the Disney Plus streaming service. Okay, many people said it, and I still agree to this day. That's obvious that the only reason why they brought it back is just so people would subscribe to Disney Plus. You know, they had The Mandalorian up there, but The Mandalorian was not a surefire way to get people subscribed to it because The Mandalorian was brand new. In fact, even myself, I wasn't completely on board with The Mandalorian until about the day before it came out and I actually watched it. I really wasn't completely on board with The Mandalorian. And Star Wars The Clone Wars already had such a fandom, including me being one of them, that it was just a safe bet for them to bring it on, do that last season, and get people to subscribe to Disney Plus. In fact, that's why they did it in the first place. And while that is 100% true, I will not deny the fact that they did that just to get people to subscribe to Disney Plus. I will also not deny the fact that I am so happy I could cry. In fact, I have cried before about Star Wars The Clone Wars. Okay, so the story starts out with them around the table looking at what's going on in the battle. And these droids, these stupid droids that we have been fighting for a while, suddenly are getting a little bit more intelligent. They are starting to come up with defense plans and strategies against the clones. And while you can make the argument artificial intelligence should be able to calculate such things, they're doing it at such a speed that is not normal. They're basically taking plans right out of Rex's head. So Rex and Cody plan to go behind enemy lines and figure out what's going on. With that said, we have to talk about Rex here for a second. Something that I just really like about the Clone Wars is how it has expanded the characters of the clones. You know, the clones, they're the exact same face. There's no individuality between any of them. They were just there on screen in episode 2 and episode 3. We learned about the name Cody, but that's about it when it comes to the clones. Something that I really like about the Clone Wars is that they actually have explored the clones' whole story. We learned that they're all individuals, that while they share the same face, they don't share the same mind. And they're not droids. They're a whole lot better and stronger and wiser than them. In fact, even in the very first episode of the Clone Wars, we have a couple of clones hanging out with Master Yoda, and Yoda senses them in the Force and tells them that there may be clones, but they all have a different signature when it comes to the Force. They're all different individuals, and that's something that I really like about the Clone Wars, how we've explored that throughout the series. And of course, in this episode, in the first episode, we get to hear the names of the old Domino Squad. You know, Rex is sitting there and he's thinking back about his friends. He's thinking about Echo and Heavy and I can't remember the other ones' names, but these clones that we have followed through the Clone Wars, especially this Domino Squad we have followed through the Clone Wars. Fives, Echo, Heavy, and there's another one that I can't remember the name of who died very... Lucky, I believe his name was. Lucky in the very first couple of episodes of Domino Squad passed away, and we really get to see through this series death and loss and war, but at the same time we get to learn more about these characters and fall in love with these characters, and it's just great. And I love the fact that we actually had this moment where Rex was looking back upon the war, looking back upon his friends, remembering them, and that actually gets him a whole lot scared. Because here's the fact. it sometimes in war, I'm taking a line straight from Cody. Sometimes in war, it's hard to be the one that survives, and that's what Rex is scared of. Rex is scared that they're using Echo for their information. Something that, of course, will come into play later because that's exactly what happens. So they meet the Bad Batch, which is Clone Force 99. Again, another tribute to Clone 99, who was a really old mutated clone that just ended up being a janitor because they didn't think he was good enough for battle. And that character was such a really important and interesting character in Star Wars The Clone Wars as well, and I really like the fact that they played a little bit of tribute to him. And we had, of course, the Clone Batch 99, or the Bad Batch, and how they're so individual. Of course, these clones are mutated a little bit more on purpose to give them the possible abilities to win certain ways that most clones wouldn't be able to. And we get to see that. We get to see them battle, and it's really, really awesome to see them work together, and the way they work together is flawless. And the animation alone is fantastic. But then eventually, at the end of episode 1, we learn that Echo is alive. And before I go into episode 2, I gotta talk about Anakin and Padme. We don't get much of them, but what we do get, I really like the fact that the Clone Wars has expanded that aspect of the story too. We get to actually feel some relationship between Anakin and his wife. You know, they actually do care for each other. And we also see that Padme is, of course, pregnant. Anakin doesn't know, because he's not supposed to know until episode 3, but it's obvious that Padme is pregnant, which gives us a really good time frame of when this season is actually happening in terms of all of Star Wars. So that's really, really cool that they threw that in there. And I really liked the interesting conversation that she has with Anakin and about Rex, and it's just really entertaining to me. With that said, we gotta go into episode 2. You know, the plan is to go find what is going on with Echo. You know, where is Echo? They go to this planet, and Anakin joins them. Hopefully, he can protect and be there for Rex. And something that I also really, really like about Star Wars: The Clone Wars is that whenever we meet aliens, you know, aliens are cool, and it's just so funny that, of course, it does. Star Wars has to speak English for us, so we speak Basic. But I love it when Star Wars does aliens that don't speak Basic, and we get to see this in this episode, and it's great. I love these other alien figures. That they were really interesting, and the way they spoke was really, really sounded weird, and how they're all lengthy and tall, and just, they look so different. That's what I love about Star Wars: The Clone Wars, is that we got to see a whole lot more of that throughout the series. Now, moving on to, of course, episode 3, we eventually do get into the place. We eventually do end up saving Echo at the end of episode 2, and in episode 3, it's just Echo's time to shine. You know, Echo has been pretty much a dead droid at this point, and now he has a chance to actually help his friends, and that's what we see. Now, at the very end of episode 3, we get to see Echo standing there with the ominous music, and he says, yeah, just like old times, just like Rex said to him. But you kind of get the sense that while he is not evil, this just like old times thing is probably not going to happen. And you gotta remember, he's basically a separatist droid right now. While it's not his fault, he could betray us, and it won't even be his fault. Now, this is one of the storylines that I kind of feel like if we had more time, if Disney would have given Dave Filoni a couple more episodes to work with, I feel like this entire Bad Batch arc could have been extended about 2 or 3 more episodes, and we could have gotten into the semantics about Echo being back, about Echo possibly being a separatist droid and being basically a bomb for the Jedi, the good guys, because he could betray the good guys, the Republic, and not even know it's because of his separatist droid parts. It's crazy. We didn't get really any of that. We just got them not trusting Echo because of that. I feel like if there were more episodes, we could dive into that, but obviously there's not, so moving on to the rest of Episode 4. Episode 4 was kind of fast-paced, but I didn't really mind it. In fact, I had a lot of fun watching it. And basically what the plan is to go and get Echo to basically a computer log and mess with the droids, turn off all of the droids, and hopefully get Trench and kind of end the battle. But the fact is, Trench has a bomb, so it becomes this whole thing of where is the bomb. And I really enjoyed Mace Windu in this episode as well. It was a lot of fun to see him and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm expecting a whole lot more Obi-Wan Kenobi. I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. But what was really fun was just at the end with Anakin Skywalker. Oh my god, did I love this scene. So Anakin Skywalker walks in and he's not messing around. He wants the information to turn off the bomb. He's already shot Echo. Echo was plugged into a computer, and Trench had an MP3 go off back into Echo, and it messed with Echo's head as well. It really hurt him. And Anakin was not going to go easy on him. He went right in there, lightsaber ablaze, right to his neck, and said, "Hey, give me the codes or you're dead." Okay, so he didn't actually say that, say or you're dead, but I'm paraphrasing there. That's basically what he did with his actions. He destroyed the droids and went straight for it. Well, then Anakin actually pulls out the lightsaber and chops off Trench's 3 robotic arms. You gotta remember, earlier in the series, Trench had 3 regular arms, got hurt in a battle that was actually against Skywalker, and ended up coming back as a robot. And actually, I love the character Trench, and I was actually kind of sad to see him go because he has been such a interesting villain. He's almost kind of like Thrawn almost in the series, and I've really enjoyed the character of Trench. And it was just really interesting that it was all right down to Anakin Skywalker going up against this guy, which he's been dealing with since the beginning of the series. And when he chopped off all 3 of his arms, that made Trench realize that he wasn't messing around. So he gives him the last code of the bomb. Mace Windu puts it in, because Mace Windu is the one who's actually defusing the bomb. It works, and here we go. This is when Anakin finally shows his true colors. He stabs Trench through the heart. And I was just freaking out at this point. We got Darth Vader. We got episode 3 Anakin in the house. Oh my god, that was such a cool scene. I was not expecting that. I was kind of thinking, okay, how are they going to do this? Trench is not in episode 3, so he has to die here somehow. Is Anakin gonna kill him? I thought, no, Anakin's not that dark right now, is he? But then out of nowhere, he just does it, and I'm like, that makes sense. I freaked out, and I loved that scene. And then I actually found it funny that he picked up the remote to the bomb, and then brought it back and gave it to he gave it to Wrecker, who was complaining about not being able to blow something up. So he made Wrecker really happy with the explosive device remote. I have really enjoyed this episode, but what was, of course, really heartwarming and a little bit sad is at the very end when Echo actually decides to go with the Bad Batch. Now, unfortunately, this part was the only part of the show that I felt like was rushed. There should have been a longer period of time where we had Echo kind of standing there looking at the Bad Batch as Rex walks behind and goes the other way. I feel like there should have been a moment where Echo could have been trying to really decide on what he was going to do. And I feel like there was a moment, I just felt like it wasn't long enough. But, of course, that could be just me wanting more of the show because I absolutely love it, and Echo eventually does decide to go with the Bad Batch. Now, is that the end of the Bad Batch? I actually really will be surprised if we don't end up seeing them at the end of the series as well. You know, I bet they're going to be with Ahsoka Tano and Rex when that whole ordeal is going on at the end of the season. I'd be really surprised if we don't see these characters brought back again for the season finale of Season 7. But with that said, I absolutely loved Episode 4. I loved this entire Bad Batch arc. I've seen it before, of course, because it was put onto YouTube before. But it's great to see it finished. I haven't watched it in a long time, so it's great to see it finished. It's great to see what's changed. It's great to see what's the story has actually evolved into. It's just all around great. I loved it. Thank you guys for watching. And that is my review for the Bad Batch arc. Season 4. The Bad... Oh boy. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching, and that is my review of Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 7, The Bad Batch arc. I'm out. Bye.